Hello, everybody. Welcome to another week of Coaches Corner Health. I am one of your co-hosts, Leslie Goddard. I'm a mindset and emotional awareness coach for women who are on a mission to change their world through adopting both and rather than an either or mindset, and they want to keep doing what they love and add more value to their lives. And I show them how they can do it. Over to you, Andy.
I love that. Every time I love that. That's awesome. I'm Andy Lidstone. I'm the unconditional coach. I help people with boundaries. I help people get the results they're looking for out of life, make closer connections, deepen their relationships, and find more love and joy. That's what I do. And we're about to have another awesome conversation. We always do have awesome conversations. We're about to have another one to begin to close. This won't be the last one, but the second last one in our series on how we can help the younger generations and how we can help them become who they want to be and have better results, better influence, make the world a better place. And this one, we're talking about culture, and we're talking about I guess the last stage of what we would call young people, the young adults, as they become adults, go out into the world and start influencing the world around them in a major way. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I'm excited because I truly believe, and we've talked about this before, that our younger generation, they are the ones that actually create the trends. They are the ones that create like where we're going to go,
Yeah.
whether it's on social media, how we're going to show up, the things we're going to do. I mean, it really is influenced by them, even though they may not know that they hold all the power right now. They
Right.
kind of
Right.
do, and
Yeah.
that's okay. But I also know that in that they hold this power, it's still the responsibility, I believe, of the ones that have gone before them to help them as they
Yes.
navigate the changes and they're making these changes, because the world is just in like an open book for them, and
Yeah.
they haven't yet experienced life. So it's helping
Yeah.
them from this point of view. We've been there, done that, because we were one of those trend makers once before as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you. We have the responsibility to help them. And I think that's part of what I wanted to talk about in this video when we talked about creating culture in the workplace, or what it's like to have culture in the workplace. This is relevant because we we don't understand that responsibility that you talked about. I don't think we understand that in a way that is helpful to both us and them, like
Mm-hmm.
to us older generations and to this particular generation that we're talking about today. That responsibility does not include telling them how to go about their lives. This responsibility starts with learning how to connect with them, learning how to talk with them, learning how to understand who they are, what their desires are, what their wants and needs are, what their values are, learning how to meet them where they're at, because we have the experience that can do that. They
Mm-hmm.
don't yet know, or haven't, or maybe they do know, but they don't know how to connect with us, or maybe they do know some of how to connect, but they have less experience than we have. See, the adults in this category, in this 18 to 25 kind of age group, maybe even up to 30, they have some experiences. They've done some things. They've even made some big differences, and there are some people who've actually done world changing things by this point.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not the the clay that the teenagers were, or the children were. They're starting to do things on their own. So I think this responsibility that we have is not so much teaching them right from wrong anymore. It's more learning how to share our knowledge with them in a way that's useful to them, rather
Mm-hmm.
than just telling them what to do.
Yeah. And I agree with you, because I think it's not about like having them carry the torch where they carry on our practices. I
Correct.
believe that even though we may be doing something really great in the world ourselves today, it doesn't mean that it can't be better. right? And
Yes.
so you look at a lot of inventions that are out there. People had the they had the idea, but maybe they didn't finish it. They maybe started it, and somebody else came up behind them and finished it, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
having someone that's been through some of life's challenges, I think is really, really powerful for somebody who's young coming up behind and making these changes in the world. But it's also equally, I think, as beneficial to someone who's in our age demographic, that it can remind us, oh, remember, this was how we used to think.
Right.
That can
Right.
empower us to move forward, because sometimes we get stuck in
Yeah.
the, because we've gone through life, we've had these challenges, and sometimes those challenges have kept us stuck, and we haven't been able to get out of those that stuck frame of mind. And it just is wonderful when you can have an experience with someone who's younger that can say, hey, like, by the way, and they'll give you like this, oh my gosh, and you're thinking, wow, that just reminded me of how I used to be,
Yeah.
bringing things forward. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think we can both benefit. But I truly believe that just because something worked now for us, it has to work now for them as they move
Yeah.
forward. And again, the ripple effect, they're going to be the ones. I think for you and I, we've talked about this. We want to influence them enough in a good way that they are strong enough and powerful enough that when they get to our age, they've gone through life, they can still have that memory, those collected memories of, okay, now I can actually share my journey and help the ones coming up behind me. So that's really
Right.
what I think both of us have talked about. We want that ripple effect, but a positive ripple effect.
Right. And that's exactly true. It's about sharing our knowledge with them, sharing our experience with them. It's about joining with them to create the future, a future that is a combination of what we want and what they want. That
Mm-hmm.
is, that isn't just my vision of the future finally completed. It is that and more. It is about, using what I've gone through, what I've experienced, and connecting with them, and then reminding myself what it was like to think like they think, with the world is my oyster kind of a thought, or everything's open to me. I have the entire future ahead of me. Like, there's so much hope and vision in that generation of people.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get to a point in our lives where we have set we've set up things to just kind of happen in the way we prefer them, and we forget what it's like to have that world is my oyster perspective. I have my entire future ahead of me. Sometimes we forget that because we have a lot of future behind us. It's
Yeah.
not future anymore, right? It's our past now. So we have experienced a lot of that, and there are some things that we've decided we don't want to experience anymore. Therefore, we've chosen to limit some of our experiences. And they
Mm-hmm.
have the openness to want to experience those things. And many of them, even the bad things, like even the mistakes, they want to experience what it's like to to mess stuff up, like to not get it right. They don't actually want to not get it right, but they want to experience what it's like to try and keep trying. And this is where we can jump in and say, yeah, actually, at the end of your rocky, muddy, sludgy road is this rainbow, this beautiful experience. And if you just keep going, this is my version of what you could experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we have, like you said, we have so much that we can offer them. And it's about taking that and mixing it with their hopeful future so that we can create something better for all of us.
Yeah.
I think this is something that we can do that we haven't done in past generations, is learning how to mix the hope of the youth with the experience of the wise. Whereas before, it's either one or the other. The youth didn't want the wisdom, or the wise didn't want the youth. So
Yeah.
let's combine the two and make a better future.
Yeah. And I think too, partly that I don't know so much. I don't know where the balance is, but I do know that for me personally, I truly believe I can learn from whether the person's older, the same age as me, if they're younger. If
Yep.
somebody comes to me in a conversation and we're having a debate or we're having a conversation about something and we come to an understanding where we both feel like we both are getting it. We're connecting on a deeper level. I don't care how old you are.
Right.
Because I believe I can learn from, and I think that's a really good thing because sometimes I've been stuck. And
Right.
just speaking to someone
Exactly.
who's younger has reminded me of who I used to be.
Right.
That the woman who didn't actually have that fear, who was bold like that, like you were saying, to get into the game and do the things, even though I had no
Yes.
idea what the outcome would be. In fact, most of the time, I can just say from personal experience, when I was in the game of, going after my career of choice, I didn't fear of have any rejection at all. There was no fear of rejection. In fact, I
Right.
never thought the answer would be no.
Right.
So it's revisiting that person, being able to be reminded to revisit that and how and getting curious of like, okay, who was I? And like I was bold. So what did I
Yeah.
do? And that reminds me and that helps me. So I think but it also just comes down to being open and willing to allow the younger generation to influence you or to be able to to give them their wisdom because they're learning so much faster now, it seems, because I think we have the internet. I think
Right.
it's a lot faster in the way that they're changing the dynamic of how the world is or how they're influencing different ways of living, lifestyle choices that they make. And I truly believe that it's a lot to do with because we have social media, we have the internet. I didn't grow up immediately with the internet. So then I got propelled into it. So I think as a younger person coming into it, it's already been a part of their life. They don't know any different. And so I think things move faster. And I think that's where we can help them like, hey, yeah, we know things move faster, but let me tell you about my life experiences that might be able to give you a different perspective outside of what the internet provided, outside of what social media provides, because I didn't
Right.
always have this.
Right. And I completely agree. And the I guess the caution I want to put with that is information that I would love for us to share. What I
Mm-hmm.
don't want us to do is demand that they hear it.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, what a lot of people what a lot of people from our generation do, and not even most, but a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what they do is they say, "I have all of this brilliant, wonderful experience that will help stop you from making all the mistakes that I made. You need to hear it." And the
Right.
youth are going like, "I don't care."
Yeah.
Right? That's the mistake I think we could make. And what I'd like to do, what I want to get at, and this is where culture in the workplace comes in, is culture is not created because we tell them how shit goes.
Mm-hmm.
Culture is created when we work together to create a situation that everybody wants to be in.
Mm-hmm.
When we're creating culture in our job, when we're creating culture maybe in a company that we're running, when we're creating culture, you know, just as a new employee or as somebody who's been here for a little while, right? When we're starting to create culture, it doesn't happen because, oh, I decided I wanted to bring social media into work and I want that to be a part of my job now. It happens because, you know, we people with experience sit down with those who are less experienced, and we discuss, we discover, we look at, this is the experience that I have and what I think could be useful for our company. And the youth go, and this is the vision that I have, and the hope that I have, and the dreams that I have, and I think that could be useful for the company. And then we sit down, we create culture by melding those two into a future the company can see forward. Most companies that I've worked for do one or the other. They are either
Mhm.
youth focused, vision focused, and they don't care about what has gone before. I don't care if this is how you've always done it. We're going to just do it our way. Or they are tradition focused and they don't care about vision and change. And I think culture is created when you meld the two.
Yeah, I just love it. You just hit the nail on the head with that, with respect to when you're coming from the two perspectives. Usually, what's happening when they butt heads is that people who've been seasoned, who've gone through life, are looking at the vision based on their experiences, and the people who are younger, who are coming into a situation, are basing their vision around like the possibilities of creation. And
Yep.
so that's where I think it would be so powerful if they could both come together and say, look, these
Yes.
are my experiences, and this is my vision that I have based on what I've already experienced. Okay, well, this is
Yeah.
my vision based on what I would love to create, what I see as
Yes.
possibility. And I think
Yes.
when you look at some of the companies out there that are already creating this kind of, I think, community, I don't know how many people are working within these communities that are people who have already gone through life experiences, or if they're all young people, visionaries that are creating these movements. So I couldn't really speak to that, but it would be really great if there were companies out there, which I'm sure there are, that have this idea of like, look, you've got people who are seasoned, and it doesn't mean just because they're seasoned that they know it all, but it's here because it's like having a foundation. You don't want to build a house without your foundation being level. Well, that's what they're trying to provide that. But then you also know that when you're putting it up, you have to have a plan of like your structure. What is that going to look like? And sometimes someone who's building something from experience, they might be looking at the structure. Well, this is how I've always seen it. I like it XYZ. This is how it goes. But someone might come in and say, well, wouldn't it be great if we did this? Like, this is my vision for what the structure will look like when we put up the walls and the windows and everything like that. So, that's kind of like how I was looking at it, is looking at
Yes.
from two perspectives based on experience, based on the creation.
Yep.
And that is where I think, when I look back just on my own personal experience of when I was seeking after, I was chasing after my job. I
Yeah.
was a legal secretary, and how I did it, which was it, when I think about it, because I got reminded after speaking to a young person, um, how in my early 20s, when I was in, between 20 and 30, and I was going after my career, and I was looking at the marketplace and looking in, and there was no internet really, like full on internet at the time. And here I was trying to build my career and seeing, the changes in technology and the larger firms, and where it was at and where I should go if I wanted to become, to make the money to become more at what I was.
Yep.
And the way I would go after, like my very first job, like, literally, I was a receptionist answering the phones for multiple lined phones for an office that had, I think, about 16 offices in it. And I was the switchboard. And
Yep.
I noticed that the lawyer's office was ringing the most. So I went in one day and I said, it looks like your phone rings the most. Do you need any help? And that's how I got my first job.
Right. Right.
So it was being bold. And I think that's where you get the younger generation. They have a vision, they want to create something, they go out and they look at they see the possibility and they go after it. My second time I remember was when I was more in my later 20s, after I had made some changes to get into where I knew computers and all of that was happening. And I, my friend went to a law firm in Toronto, and I heard about it. So I looked it up and I thought, okay, I sent my resume and proceeded to call for 2 weeks until I got an interview and got hired. That was
Yeah.
me being bold again, right? And I think that's
Yes.
what the generation can see. That's what they're doing based on their vision. I had a
Yeah.
vision. This is their vision. And now I want to be able to support that. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
share that because I thought it was kind of interesting when I thought
Yeah.
back on that and was reminded.
Yeah. And that's exactly the point. There are, in every generation, there are bold risk takers like yourself who do things and go forward and make things happen. And what comes from that is brilliant. We don't want to quash that. We don't want to put that fire out. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
the times, and this is my experience, while I went forward to do that, I had people from older generations all around me saying, you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't. So I didn't.
Mhm.
So that fire in me was mashed out. Like I was squashed. So I didn't go forward and do wonderful things until I started to find that power, that authority again, which I didn't get to do till much later on in life. And that's the other side of the same story, right? So
Mhm.
that's, and this is the point, is what we're trying to say here is, let's offer our youth a way to build that fire, to direct it, to help them build something great. Let's show them what we've got. Let them pick and choose the parts that they want to keep and throw the rest out. And, let's build that community instead of saying, no, you can't do that. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, we can't do that. Oh, we can't do that. Let's build, let's create the experience you had and avoid the experience I had, right? Let's do that, because this is how our youth, not all of our younger generation, of our workforce, who's only got a few years experience or maybe no experience. This is how they learn. Not all of them have the ability or the confidence or self-worth to go forth and just fight for what they believe. Most of them don't. So let's help them create that. Let's help them recover that. Let's help them have that. And those who do, let's inspire the hell out of them. Let's
Mhm.
give them all the tools we have that they don't yet have,
Mhm.
right? Instead of limiting them and telling them they have to go this way or this way, simply give them the options of what our experience can show them, and let them go forward with that. Let's build these fires. Let's start the fires who have been maybe burnt out or snuffed, and let's build the fires and guide the fires of those who are already burning and moving and making motion. Let's take the whole generation and bring them forward into a life that is closer to what we're all looking for, right? Rather than conflicting with them and calling them marshmallows and talking millennials this and Gen Z that, let's say, you know what? Humanity is a wonderful place, and we can create some wonderful things. And we'll start in our jobs,
Yeah.
because that's where we interact with them the most.
Yeah, and being able to just empower them to that it's okay to ask the questions. Like, if you
Yes.
want to make change, and that's the point of, I think, culture in the workplace and bringing something fresh, something new, a new idea that can help your employer. But if you want to go out, if you're the employer, that can help you. But you want to be able to feel confident enough to ask those questions, to start that dialogue of questions, so that you can start figuring out, like, it's again that creation, like being that artist who has a ball of clay in front of you, and you're trying to like create something with your hands, and you're figuring out, like, if you take a piece away here or if you add something there, it becomes something. But being okay and confident enough to do that, I think what you were experiencing, how you explain what you experience, is it's not necessarily that I didn't hear some of those things, but I chose to not believe that I
Yep.
couldn't, because I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I felt like there was no obstacle unless I chose to just to let it
Right.
become that
Right.
obstacle. I think it became more so of that as I got older, because as you get older, you tend to get settled in, and then you start to feel like, okay, there's a lot newness going on, and am I going to become obsolete? In fact, truth be told, one of the reasons why I really started to become more present on social media and wanted to get into coaching, wanted to do something more, something different, was because I felt that at 55, when I was going to be 55, I wasn't yet 55, but I started thinking, I don't want to become that person who now goes into the shadows, that the young generation takes
Right.
over and I'm no
Right.
longer relevant and I'm gone and
Exactly.
I'm out of, right? And I felt like that wasn't what I wanted. Again, I was exerting something, some kind of confidence, but as I've gone through the last few years, my confidence level obviously has increased, but that's where I feel like the older generation that we both experienced, there's that fear of, consistency, of, of having stability, where, so like where my husband's from, it's always like, do you have a job, do you have a job? It is the most asked question. Are you working to make sure that you have a way to survive, to support yourself? And
Yeah.
now we're asking we want our young people to say, look, do you have a vision? That's
Yeah.
the question I want to ask. Do you have a vision? What do you see your life looking like? And not limiting them to having to just choose one way, not to be all over the place. That's not what we're saying. And we're not
But some
saying to like
guidance.
not, yeah, exactly. And we're not saying that, oh, don't listen to the people who've gone before you. What we're saying is finding a way to have ask those questions. And like you said, Andy, it's take what you like, use that, what you
Yeah.
like about what
Yeah.
you heard, or take what you like, what you heard, and make it your own, tweak it,
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
it. But that's why I feel like you and I have really meshed well in what we do together, is because we both feel like we want, even though we might have had different experiences in
Yeah.
our paths, we do want to empower that the people coming behind us, the ones that are closer to us in age and the ones that are behind them, to have, the support from us, to encourage them to ask the questions, to not feel afraid that they will mess up.
Right.
I don't want them to, and because I think this is what's happened, and I've had this experience with just a young girl who's a coach. When I found out her age, I was impressed. But
Right.
she said she was afraid to tell me her age because she felt she wasn't qualified based on not having life experience. And
Right.
I said, well, you do have life experience. You might
Right.
not have the decades like I have, but it does
Right.
not mean that your life experience is any less than my own. You are
Correct.
closer to the younger years than I am, which helps you go back and check on that and be able to maybe course some of those, or course correct some of those things before you wait 20, 30, 40 years later to then start looking back
Yeah.
on your life, right?
Yeah.
So I really feel like it's, again, our responsibility. I feel if I want this world to continue on and to be a better place, then it's our responsibility. Point
Yeah.
blank.
Yeah. It is. It is our responsibility, and our responsibility includes trying to share with those people who are coming up behind us.
Mm-hmm.
It includes a good portion of that responsibility is to help them learn our lessons, but the biggest part of that responsibility is they won't learn those lessons if they don't want to be around us,
Mm-hmm.
right? The biggest part of that responsibility is to learn how to connect with them, to actually learn how to care about their life experiences, to find a way to bring these worlds together. I think some of the problem that we've been having, in sharing with past generations, is that we don't believe they have any value. Like for generations now, we've been saying the younger generations just don't get it. Well, when we tell them they don't get it, why were they going to listen to us? Like, why would they care what we have to say when we tell them that there's a big disconnect between you and me, right? Why would they listen? So I think that's one of the things we can heal. And by doing that, by focusing on healing that gap, by focusing on bringing it together, and this is something you and I do, We talk to young people. We talk to people in our generations. We talk to people all over the map. And this is some of the things that we do is we heal some of these wounds, some of these gaps between parents and their children, or older coworkers with younger coworkers. And and this, I think, is the magic that we're looking for, because culture isn't just a bunch of teenagers wearing, specific clothing, or choosing to do the newest trend. Culture is what sticks around when those trends pass. Culture is how we treat each other in the workplace, in the home, in the different environments. Culture is what evolves into something new, and what has evolved from something that came before. You can't evolve something new without including the newer generation, and you can't evolve from what came before without including the older generation. So the whole point of this is that we bring it all together. We move forward with something where we are not talking about, you guys just don't get it, and you're all a bunch of wimps, and you're all this and you're all that. And those judgments are what's causing these gaps. They will not get the message while we're saying that.
Mm-hmm.
They will not hear about our experiences, or learn from the things that we've done if we say things like that. So let's learn to love them, share them, invite them into our circles, invite them into our country clubs, invite them into those closed room meetings. Bring them along. Yeah, they're chaotic. Yeah, they're weird. Yeah, they're wonderful. And sometimes they don't listen to the rules. Great. Maybe the rules need to change,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the point. These we shouldn't have to say, I'm going to ignore all of your bad advice and just do what I want. We shouldn't have to do that when we're youth, which is what we had to do as youth. It's what I had to do. It's what you did.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't have to. We should be able to say, I like this advice. This and this and this I'm going to keep, and all the rest, I'm going to chuck that in the garbage. And we should
Mm-hmm.
be okay with that, because if we are, they can we can help them. We can share more and more of our experiences. We can, as the people who've gone through life, make a difference, and
Mm-hmm.
stop, and not be irrelevant. I can be 80 years old and still have plenty of things to share, because there are plenty more generations that don't have my experience, right?
It's just so funny that you say that, because when you said that, it clicked in my head that there's one, I guess, grouping of people that just seems that they've been able to, across the board, just bring people together through music, and that's musicians. You look at some of these rock bands, like, the ones that are from our generation,
Yes.
are still bringing in the younger generation, and they are relevant still. These guys are like in their 70s and their 80s, and they're still rocking it, but they have something in common, which I think
Yes.
is that they still have that vision of creation rather
Yes.
than that vision from experience. And I think, because otherwise, if they thought about when they were making their music, a new album, then they would base their new album on the last one they did, and it would sound the same. Whereas
Yeah.
they look to create newness, to
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
different. You look at Rush as an example,
Yeah.
this band that went from one specific area all the way to the far, like, I'll just say the far right, where they were wearing the suits and they were like
Yeah.
playing this type of music, which was completely different than any people had ever heard before,
Yeah.
and from them, and they were willing to go out and explore that, and I thought that
Yeah.
was brilliant. Now, did I like it? Not necessarily.
Right.
But did I respect them for that?
Right.
Absolutely, because they didn't just say, well, I'm going to base my vision on experience because that's what everyone else wants me to do. I think that's how culture in the workplace. It's not necessarily that young people are coming in saying, "Okay, this is how it's being done now. You older people in here don't know what you're talking about."
Right.
It's about not one or the other creating that culture. It's
Right.
both being willing to come to the table and
Yeah.
bring their perspective to create a vision for the future of the company. And I think that there's a lot of companies out there that probably could have used this advice, that may have gone out of business because of,
Yeah.
not adopting that principle.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
agree.
I really, that was just when you said that, I was just thinking, yeah, like you look at, like just look at Aerosmith and Steven
Yeah.
Tyler, and he's like, I bet you could sit in a room with a bunch of 17-year-old kids that would be geeking out on him because he gets them, because he
Yeah.
still has that creative visionary mindset. So, and I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And to take that a step further, you'll see this mixture of culture in the music industry when
Mm-hmm.
an established band like Rush or Aerosmith or Metallica is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of people don't like Metallica because they sold out when they changed their music and matured and blah blah blah. Yeah, they were catering to the new generation. That's what music does. But what a point I'm getting at is you'll see a lot of this mixing of culture, this let's bring in the old with the new when those older established band goes on tour and they bring in some young person, some young unknown band or some young little known band to open for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're selling these 300, 400, $500 tickets, and we'll give you a small portion of that for, introducing us, giving them something to listen to while they wait for us to get there. And it gives these young upcoming bands some exposure they didn't have before. And I've even known a lot of young people go to those concerts to hear those young bands because they're familiar with them, and then they get exposed to the older bands. I mean, because they're not going to spend $300 on a ticket to see a band that's probably worth $50, but they
Mm-hmm.
will stay and watch the older band that they weren't even there to see in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like you said, this is what the music industry does. They sit down with each other. There's collaborations between older established bands and young bands all the time. Musicians, and I'm not just talking rock, I'm talking pop music. And, Madonna sits down with young pop stars all the time, and she's
Mm-hmm.
not a teenager anymore,
That's correct. But
right?
again, yeah, we could take a page from their book,
We
We
could we
really
could learn
could.
something from that, right? And that's exactly true. So, and that's their work environment. They're doing it in their job, in their workplace, right? That's the whole point. Is it doesn't have to start with families in this case. It can start in our jobs. It can start in a place where there are more commonly older people and younger people trying to work toward the same goals, right? We can create culture in our jobs, in our companies, in our work environments, even in our government agencies and our nonprofit groups, like all the different all the different entities, all the different ways that we can work together. If we're volunteering for our children, there are some that, sometimes it's the grandparents volunteering, and sometimes it's the young couple who just had their first child. We can all work together and create something that is building and creating and wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some of the some of the greatest mistakes ever made were when people refused to take the opinions of the other side. Young people just making the same mistake over and over and over again. Old people not are refusing to learn from their mistakes and continuing to make the same mistakes that they have made for decades. And yet some of the best solutions come from mixing the two. Okay, the young ones are going to make some mistakes. The old ones are going to show them what those mistakes meant and how to learn from them. The the young ones are going to try some new things and maybe make some more mistakes, and the older ones are going to help them learn from those mistakes, and eventually they get to a better solution faster. Not because I told you what you did wrong, but we can sit down and figure out maybe this is the thing we missed, or maybe that's the thing we missed. And
Mm-hmm.
this is how workplace culture is most appropriate for this conversation, because that's when
Mm-hmm.
we're most often creating, serving, building, designing all the things that just jobs are built for. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the reason that we have a career, And all of those things, we don't have to hate our jobs. If we could learn how to create culture in the workplace, we could learn to have safety, security, joy, love, family. We could learn how to have all of that join in our regular everyday life instead of having to have work and home as two separate things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And I think work and home, obviously, we want them to be separate. But I think what you're saying is that you don't. I think a lot of people, they go and they say they hate their job.
Yes,
And
yeah,
is it
that's
really
exactly
that
what I'm
they
saying.
hate? Is it really that they hate their job? Because when you really reflect on it, what is it that has got you so in this discomfort? It doesn't necessarily have to be the job itself. Now, a lot of the time it is, but then sometimes it could be a lot of other things that have built up to create this tension that makes you hate your job. And that could be just based on how you are coming into the workplace and you're creating that tension within the workplace, then creates this discomfort, which makes you hate your job. I mean, there's just
Yeah,
so many different things. And I think also another thing, which I really truly have been trying to change the mindset for people, is this mindset believing that you have to choose, because I don't think you
yeah,
have to choose, especially, and
I agree.
when you don't think you have to choose, then you're not looking at, I have to get away from this to get, I got to find something to get away from this, I got to
Yeah,
find anything, I don't care what it is, and you get into that scarcity mindset, that overwhelmed, overwhelming yourself, doing things, trying to get away from something that necessarily you don't hate, but you've bought into this belief that in order for you to be successful, you got to go out and be your own boss. So go out and find something. And in the meantime, if it's not happening fast enough, you're looking over here
right,
going, well, it's because this thing is keeping me, it's holding
right.
me back. And you forget that you really loved this job. And
Yeah,
I reason why I'm saying this is I can speak from personal experience, because that was me. And
yeah,
the moment I chose to embrace having a non-traditional job, of course, but I'm supporting a team of lawyers and paralegals, and I'm a life coach. And when I
right,
decided to embrace that I love it, I can do this, and I can do this together, is like everything just was like, oh, okay, let's go.
right,
And that
right.
was great. But and so I think it's just learning to find what really is the issue. And so when you go into your workplace and you want to create change, where is it, like, looking at it from, how can I bring my vision for creation to someone who's seasoned, looking at it from experience, and bringing and having a conversation. And one of the other things I would also share is, when there's a when there is a challenge or a problem that you are faced with, a question, trying to figure that out, is becoming resourceful to see if you can figure out an answer before you bring that to the table, saying, hey, this is what we talked about, this is what I'm challenged with, this is what I thought we could do, and you start a conversation. And I think that's how you can start creating that culture in the workplace, bringing the two together,
Yeah,
working
yeah,
together.
yeah. Exactly. And this is again, I wanted to go back a minute to what you said a minute ago about you can have both and, because that's relevant too to the culture we're creating. Um, Another version of that experience, my experience was the both and meant I could work a job I hated while trying to find something new. I didn't have to try and escape that job. I'm not trying to do something new to escape that job. I'm trying to do something new to give me the freedom to change from that job to a job I like,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm in a job I hate and I want to do this life coaching thing, but I don't want to quit working. I just don't want to do the job I'm currently doing. I want to go
Mm-hmm.
find another job that I'm liking. So if I have this life coaching thing, then it can help sustain me for a little while, culturally, financially, socially. It can give me a lot of that work experience that that experience of having a job while I go look for another job. I can have, like you said, the both and. I don't have to quit my job and then sit in anxiety for the next 3 months while I look for another job. I
Mm-hmm.
can have another way to transition. It's for me, that's what it was. It was the ability to hold on to something I don't like, build something else I do like, so that I have then the space to transition from the first thing I don't like to something else I do like in that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's another way to be able to use both. And this is what creating culture looks like, is because now I get to, even when I'm in the job I hate, because I'm doing this other thing over here, I'm not resenting that job so much. I'm not complaining to my coworkers so much. I'm not, pulling my toxicity out and leaving it on the all over the floor. I'm doing what I have to do. I'm doing my job. I'm being as kind and generous as I can be in a job that I don't enjoy doing, while I build this other thing that actually does fulfill me, so
Mm-hmm.
that I can then go and find another job, right? But while I'm working that job that I hate, I'm not also messing up the culture of that company. I'm not also creating a negative, hurtful culture in that company. If there are people who like that job, they can then go forward and make a culture that they like. And even if I don't, I can still just exist in that job instead of hurting it, instead of letting my negativity flow all over the place and ruin the culture there. That's a way that we can even use a negative job, even a job we don't like. We're not going to create culture there, but we can stop destroying it,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
let's get part of the and this is part of what I like, what I think I've been participating in this conversation, is you're bringing forward the let's create, and I'm bringing in the forward let's stop destroying, so that we can create, right?
Yeah.
And both parts are required. We do need to create, and we also need to stop destroying so that we can create more. I think that's the two pieces that are relevant to the conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
so I like that you brought that up, because it reminded me that, yeah, actually, you can still work in a job you like or dislike, in the job that you hate, while you're working toward building something different, and you can have both.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. I think also too is being able to let go that you're right, like one side is right. I think it's um, we all have opinions, we all
Yes.
have our own perspectives. So, but and it's just because you've been through a lot of stuff and you have experience. As an example, myself, I'll use myself as an example. I work, as I said, support a team of lawyers and paralegals, most of which I've been in law much longer than most of them, except for the managing partner. I've been in law pretty much longer than the rest of everyone else in the firm,
In the
which
team,
is
yeah.
when I think about it, it's like, wow, that just kind of blows my mind because I have been doing this a long time. But I have to now understand, okay, I'm supporting them in a different way. How can I add to the culture of the workplace to what I've been doing is finding ways to empower everyone,
Yes.
including the lawyers. That has been my role in that based on my experience. So my vision is it, although my vision for coaching is the creation of helping people create their lives, my vision is through experience to help create balance and a little bit of structure, but also like this level of saying, hey, we can all do this together because we're a team. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to create that culture, the team culture within the organization. So I come
Yes.
from doing that from experience. My vision is through experience because I have been doing
Right.
this for almost 40 years.
Right.
And but again, my now when I look at the life coaching side of it, I've only been in this for the last 3.5 years, so I'm looking at that vision from a creative process. So
Correct.
I'm able to like have both, so I can recognize both
Yes.
sides of what we're talking about. And I think you as well understand that as well, based on your experiences. We both have that
Yeah.
because you have had your background and you now have the future. So you can look at it from both perspectives. And I think
Right.
if someone is going into a workplace where they're now, okay, I'm a young person, I'm going into a new organization, I have hopes and dreams and desires, but I've now been working with them for a little while and I've got some ideas. Is what I hope is to encourage the people who are already there to listen to these
Yeah.
people, to bring forward their ideas, but not
Yeah.
say, oh, I welcome your thoughts and then you shut them down. It
Correct.
has to truly be from a growth place. You really truly have to want to hear it. But
If you have to tell them, I welcome your thoughts, their thoughts don't
mhm,
feel welcome.
yeah,
Right. If you have to tell them this is what you're doing, then clearly you're not doing it.
right.
Right. They'll know when you're doing it.
Hmm.
Right. And that's exactly the truth. It is about it is about um, giving them the space to bring it forward. And it's about creating a space where that's relevant. And what I do in the boundaries work is I teach people how to communicate in such a way that the other side, even if they aren't necessarily open to it, will hear you.
Hmm.
So in this case, I can teach young people how to speak to the establishment in such a way that they'll hear you. Right? I can help you communicate what your intentions and what your desires are in such a way that they'll get it and they'll be interested. And I can help the older generations, the wisdom people, to talk to the young people, to communicate with the young people, with the visionaries in such a way that they'll want to hear what you have to say, that they'll
Hmm.
value your knowledge instead of just calling you some old fart and brushing you off. Right. And that's what we do is you help people want that. I help people do that, and we both I mean I help people want it and you help people do it too. Like we do each other's jobs as well, but that's kind of the focus, right? My boundaries help people communicate their intentions, and you help people find what their intentions really are in the first place,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And that's the brilliance of our work. And it's this is the magic, is let's bring these together. Let's create culture. Let's use the benefits of all versions of experience, whether it's 6 months because I've been here for a little bit of time, or whether it's 60 years because I've been here my entire life. Let's use all of it because it all has value. And then nobody has to worry about whether they're relevant. Am I old enough to have any value? Yes. Are you in the job? Then you're old enough. Am I Have I lost touch with what the youth want? Are they still asking you questions? Then you're not out of touch, right? This is how we create those scenarios. If you're feeling like you're out of touch, ask yourself, have you been listening? If you're feeling like you don't like you haven't qualified yet, ask yourself, do you know what the older generation is trying to tell you?
Hmm.
Right? It's about creating that culture that mixes these together, right? That melds them into one beautiful ball of goop that is pure creation,
Hmm.
right? That just
Yeah.
creates wonderful things.
Yeah. And imagine like what that would could look like. I know, listen, I can really say that I was that girl who looked at someone who was much older than me in the industry that I'm in thinking they're old
Yeah,
and not really thinking that they have much value to add to me because I felt like like I said, I didn't know that the word no didn't mean have as much power for me. I think as I've gone through life experience, I started recognizing there is value in letting other people share their life experience with you so I can learn how to navigate the world that I'm walking through because we may all experience the same things, some of them similar to the same things, but our perspective is going to be different.
always
Our
different.
how we, and so I love being able to like talk to different people, getting their perspective, allowing myself to learn, whether it's someone who, as I said, I talked to a 24-year-old coach who the first time she went out on her own, she was 14 years old. Now she went and she actually went to school. Now she was able to do that where she's from. To someone who is much older who decided that she wanted to have a career doing something where she had more time freedom. And now she's doing that and getting her perspective, her experience, learning from that. What did she do? Getting the perspective from this younger girl who, her experiences and being able to share my journey and being able to inspire her to like, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can ask questions. There are people who are older than I am that I can still relate to them in some way and
Yes.
be of value. Again, I like to be reminded of those moments in time where I was bold, where I did go out. Like I said, the power of the word yes to me was always in the back of my head, that when I am going to do something, if I'm going to go and get a job, that I would get the job over the phone or I would pursue it because I felt and believed enough that it was going to happen. And I
Yep.
think that was as you get older, sometimes you start getting, as I said, you start feeling like you might be becoming irrelevant because of the younger
Yep.
generation coming up behind you,
Yep.
because you're
Yep.
reminded that you're getting older. And when we're reminded of our age, I think that's when people start to break down, to shut down, because we're reminded of our age, which is basically someone's way of saying, well, you know what, it's almost like we're going to have to put you out to pasture now because you're past like the due date. And it's like, that's why I refused. And that was one of the reasons, like I said, I got into doing life coaching partly because I thought I want to be relevant, not because it was about me, but because I knew that I had something that I could help and share with other people that
Yep.
were coming up behind me, because it became extremely apparent to me that the younger generation was craving to have that connection, but they weren't necessarily getting it. And I think if I and you and others like us can say, you know what, we're open, our door is open, and our minds are open to receiving you,
Yes. Yep.
I think that will really help, especially if, as people who have businesses who are in that seasoned, family like us, who start hire and who hire the younger generation to come in and as their workforce, is to be able to create this vision or this mission for the company that's all about taking each other's perspectives from a seasoned mind to a young mind, one who's like thinking of
Right.
the future and a visionary and dreaming, to one whose vision is based on experience, and bringing them together. And we can, and
Yeah.
that will create culture in the workplace like none other. My
I agree.
what I think.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I would love to talk about this for another week and a half. However,
I'm excited for next week. Oh my gosh, because this
oh,
is
we
really
got
going
some.
to go right into that. Oh,
We're gonna have some fun stuff for you next week. Stay tuned. We're coming.
yeah.
We got something in mind for you. So yeah, thank you for listening to for paying attention, for watching our this episode, for participating, and we appreciate any comments, any suggestions, any ideas that you have. Let us know, and of course, do the YouTube thing, and like and subscribe and share the video, and do all those things that YouTube likes, so that other people who want to experience this stuff can, so we get noticed, and so that other people can take advantage of what you got to experience. And thank you for paying attention. Thank you, Leslie, for all of your brilliant wisdom as always that you bring. And I love our conversations. This is why we're doing this. Is why we've been doing it for so long, and why we don't see a way to stop just yet. We're going for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And Andy, I thank you as well, because I think we have a way of just having these conversations, which are not planned again, which kind of
Right?
blows my mind when we realize that we plan the topic. We have a couple of notes that we know is
Right.
the theme or the design or the way, the flow that we want to take, but there
Right.
is no pre-plan. We do not talk about it before. We just say, okay, we're doing this, and we show up. And I
And we
think
show
that
up.
is what makes it such a great collaboration, and one that I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed. And
Me too.
I don't see it ending. You know, I think this would be great to just continue forward and be able to like really start changing the world from, you know, one perspective at a time, or at least letting them, you know, have the confidence to listen to other people
Yes.
and embrace that.
To
You
see
know,
other perspectives. That's the point. I think that's the underlying point of this channel, is to help them see other perspectives. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So thank you everyone for coming and joining in on with us. We really are excited to have you here, and we hope that you tune in to again next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern before we take a couple of weeks off. But we are going to bring something special to the show next week. Oh my gosh, I'm excited for this one. We're going to close out the series, and yeah, it's exciting, exciting, exciting. So with that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, fabulous week, and we'll see you on Friday.
We'll see you next week, everybody. Goodbye.